Hello everybody, my name is Drenless, pronounced Drenless, and the Australian federal election is steadily approaching. Yes, that wondrous time is upon us again where we as Australian citizens are given the right, nay, the privilege to decide who will run our country for the next 4 years. Now normally this is an incredibly stressful time on its own. You know, what if you accidentally vote wrong? What if you're the one vote that pushes that evil party into running our country for the next 4 years and they run it straight into the ground? But this, coupled with the, shall we say, mishandling of recent events, has led the Australian public to know there needs to be a change. There needs to be new leadership. Now, you may be saying, yes, Drenless, I am ready to do my part as an Australian citizen, and I am ready to choose. I am ready to vote correctly. But, who do I vote for? You're turning on the TV and you're seeing Liberal telling you not to vote for Labor.
When Australia needs certainty, it won't be easy under Albanese.
Labor telling you not to vote for Liberal.
You trust him to make it right?
That's not my job. That's not my job.
It's not my job to do that.
You're seeing Pauline Hanson worming out of the ground saying, hey guys, you should vote for One Nation. And you know, you're not going to fucking do that. Now, out of the goodness of my heart, because I'm such an awesome, epic, attractive Good Samaritan, what I'm going to do is I'm going to take an option off the table. I am going to present to you a video full of hard-hitting facts and evidence and a little bit of fun to make sure that you get this right. You know, I can't tell you how to vote. There's no correct party, no party that could set our country back on track, because in the past they ruled and we were awesome. We did well. Our economy was great. You know, if only there was some party led by a funny man who could really bring us back into the green. But there's not that. So I can't tell you who to vote for. But I can take somebody off your table, and that's the United Australia Party. Now, I remember being in high school and the UAP plastering their ads everywhere. I actually have something to tell you guys. I have to bare my soul. As I was graduating high school, I saw a funny video that Clive Palmer had posted on his Facebook page, and I thought, wow, that's funny. So I followed it, and I showed all my friends the Clive Palmer Facebook page, and I showed my family. And when my grandfather asked who I was going to vote for, I said Clive Palmer. And he said, why, Drenless? Why would you do that? Why would you forsake me? A good grandson, why would you become this beast? And I said, because Australian politics is boring. And Clive Palmer just makes memes. I was a fool. They didn't win, because of course they wouldn't. Nobody likes Clive Palmer, and Clive Palmer knows that. So when the United Australia Party announced their new running campaign this year, what did they do? They replaced Clive Palmer with a new guy, a hidden challenger, a formal Liberal politician named Craig Kelly. He's not related to Ned Kelly, although he'll try to convince you that he is, and my voice is breaking because I'm so angry. I'm going to show you a video. You're going to watch the video, and then after the video, I'm going to come back and we're going to break down all the points made in the video, and then we're going to move on to some extra thing. It's going to be a little bit of a hard-hitting dossier, right? I said that already, didn't I? Maybe I'm just stretching the video to 10 minutes. We'll never know.
I am leading the United Australia Party at the next federal election. The United Australia Party will stand candidates for every seat in the House of Representatives and the Senate. Stop lockdowns from health officers destroying your life and jobs. Protect freedom of speech. Choices for all Australians. Governments must stop bullying Australians. Get the army off the streets and free our citizens. The coalition between Labor and Liberals destroys your rights and freedoms. Liberal and Labor have destroyed our economy. They've made $1 trillion debt. They've destroyed jobs and families. Stop the lockdowns. Time for a change. Protect and defend your livelihood. Save our businesses and our jobs. Together, we can take our country back. Together, we can achieve a new government. We can never trust Liberals or Labor again.
Now, I saw that ad on YouTube, and when I first saw that, I thought, some of that doesn't sound right? It doesn't sound, a lot of it doesn't sound like actual, points to be made. They're not running promises. So what we're going to do is we're going to excise a bit of this video. We're going to get rid of all the nothing, and we're going to focus on what they're actually saying, okay? Governments must stop bullying Australians. We're going to cross that off, because what? What I presume he's doing is he's trying to link it into vaccine mandates, right? Because Craig Kelly and Clive Palmer have a bee in their bonnet. That's a little bit of a unique Australian slang for you about vaccines. They don't like them, they hate them, and they really, really, really do not want the government to force people to get vaccines. So we're going to cross off governments must stop bullying Australians. Army off the streets and free our citizens. Now, if you showed this video to an American person, they might say, wait, I actually have a prop for this. Well, journalists, it sounds to me like your country of Australia is under a bit of a military embargo right now. It says here in this video that the army is on the streets and imprisoning your citizens. Now, dang, that is just crazy. And this is what they're going for. Not necessarily just Americans. They're also trying to latch onto the older generations in Australia who see these things on the news, like 9 News and 10 News and Sky News, and all the news is about the military, you know, busting people having parties for not being vaccinated and stuff in the middle of a lockdown, right? So, army off the streets and free our citizens. We're also going to cross that off, because that just kind of ties back into the vaccine thing. And it's quite obvious, fear-mongering, little scare tactic, you know, vote for us and we'll give you freedom, which is actually echoed in a lot of their billboards, which just say freedom, freedom, freedom over and over again. Vote One United Australia Party. Labor and Liberals destroys our freedoms. Again, it just sounds like lots of lockdown vaccine mandate stuff, because I tried to look into this and it doesn't really say anything on their official website where they actually make their points. They say they want to get rid of domestic vaccine passports. They want to get rid of doctor-patient sanctity. They want to abolish the National Cabinet. They want to sell uranium. And they want people to know that the submarine contract was their idea, right? Where does it say anything about Labor and Liberal destroying our freedoms? It doesn't, but it says a lot about vaccines and lockdowns and vaccine passports and all that sort of stuff. So we're also going to cross that off our list. We have 3 little points left on our beautiful little list here. So what we're going to do is we're going to break down point number 1. Stop lockdowns from health officers destroying lives and jobs. Wow. Now, I had to go into lockdown for a little bit, you know. After the official lockdowns had ended, I had to go into lockdown again in my new house, right? I have a new house. I moved around the time that the lockdowns and stuff started happening. And when a family member of mine caught COVID, I had to go into a 2-week, quarantine. And it was not fun. Now, did lockdowns destroy my life and my job? No. My life kind of just got paused for a bit. My boss was all cool with me and stuff like that. He was like, you know, he said, Drenless, if you want to have 2 weeks off because the government's telling you to, then that's okay. I'm not going to pay you, but that's because you're casual. Right? Fair enough. Makes sense, right? Now, you may say, but Drenless, you not getting paid for 2 weeks is exactly what Craig Kelly and Clive Palmer are saying. The lockdown literally destroyed your job for 2 weeks. Now, I would like to contrast this with an article written by Jim Stanford of the Australian Institute, saying that lockdowns may suck, but they're the best way to stop COVID. That's not the exact title. I will flash the exact title right now. Now, I'll paraphrase Mr. Stanford's little arguments here, but I actually agree with them, okay? And I'm going to link all the articles and videos that I cite in this video down in the description under sources with a little title. So if you don't trust me in what I'm about to paraphrase, then that's okay. You can go read the article for yourself. Now, locking down is the best way to stop COVID. In this article, Mr. Stanford states that, you know, lockdowns do suck. They do kind of cripple the economy. They do kind of get rid of jobs. They do hurt small businesses a lot. But the alternative to locking down is staying open while recent events are running rampant through the country. Lockdowns are designed to, get everybody away, separated, and we stay like that until the scary thing goes away, right? And if we didn't do that, if we just let the scary thing go through, the COVID cases, the death toll, it would all go up, all right? So the loss of jobs and lives is kind of just a bullet that we have to bite in this sort of occasion, because the alternative is much worse. Now, Clive Palmer and Craig Kelly definitely seem like the kind of people who would go like, oh, well, fair enough, if, just keep the country open. If some people want to get sick and maybe not have such a good time as the rest of us, then, sucks to be them. But I don't believe that, And I feel like if you're watching my videos, you should also not believe that either, right? It's all good to get a good perspective, but there are some things that you shouldn't just welcome an alternative perspective on. Lockdowns are objectively good. Now, point number 2 is to protect freedom of speech. Wow, what a noble goal, truly echoed in the awesome billboards that say, freedom, freedom, freedom. Now, whenever somebody says protect freedom of speech, you have to look at what they've been saying, right? And as you'll find out later in this video, Craig Kelly and Clive Palmer have been platforming some people who have been saying some pretty evil things. But I'd just like to draw in a little bit of a hypocrisy. The United Australia Party is saying that they need to protect free speech, and yet on the 9th of March 2022, Clive Palmer sued the Western Australian Premier Mark Mcgowan for defamation of character. Fair enough, right? You want to sue somebody for defamation, go for it. You don't like what they're saying? Then sue them, right? But also, if you live in Australia, you might also recall a rather more public case of Clive Palmer suing the YouTube personality Jordan Shanks. You might not have heard of Jordan Shanks. He's rather small. His camera quality is not very good. He seems to talk a lot about lifestyle. You wouldn't really know him. He's pretty small compared to me. But I find it ironic to platform for freedom of speech and then to sue multiple people for defamation. We'll also later bring up a case where Clive Palmer sued somebody else in an ongoing case for defamation, right? Or will he threaten to? And you can't really say you want freedom of speech and then the second somebody says something bad about you, you just go, "Oi! You can't do that. I'm going to use the full extent of the law to sue you." Right? Just feels very hollow. Now, number 3 is that Liberal and Labor destroyed the economy, put us in $1 trillion debt, and, crippled jobs and families. The Liberal and Labor unity, which Clive Palmer and Craig Kelly love to talk about. Liberal and Labor are part of some secret cabal to rule the government. They've been working together because they hate Australians, right? Poppycock. But Liberal and Labor putting us into debt together, working together, putting us into $1 trillion debt. I'm actually just going to play a clip from another YouTuber who can articulate this point better than me.
Labor took on, in response to the global financial crisis, the third lowest amount of debt in the OECD. Then along came the Liberals with their mandate of, we're gonna fix the debt. You doubled the debt in a single term. One more chance. Well, now you've moved us from the third lowest debt in the OECD to the 18th highest. Labor's going to introduce a car tax. The final scorecard is that after 6 years of Labor governing, debt remained at its exact level of third lowest in the OECD. Then the Liberals came in, we tumbled 15 places.
Now that we've dissected that United Australia Party video, you may remember a little bit earlier when I said that the United Australia Party was very anti-vaccines. Now, we're going to bring up a lot about this from Clive Palmer. Now, you may be wondering, Drenless, Craig Kelly is the current leader of the United Australia Party. Why do you keep bringing up Clive Palmer? Well, because he put
$70 million
into funding the United Australia Party's current takeover, which is current attempted political campaign, which is why you see his billboards and his ads and his Facebook posts everywhere, right? So if you're going to inject lots of your money into making sure a political party wins, then I'm going to bring up some of the dumb shit you said. Now, in March of 2020, Clive Palmer stated that he would fund 1 million doses of the COVID-19 cure, hydroxychloroquine, right? Now, you may be thinking, wow, what a legend. He's going to cure COVID with... I'm sorry, did you say hydroxychloroquine? Yes, I did. Now, hydroxychloroquine is not the COVID-19 cure, as you probably recognise. And the Therapeutic Goods of Australia said exactly that. They said, Mr. Palmer, you are not bringing in hydroxychloroquine. We are not going to allow you to fund that. And if you keep saying that hydroxychloroquine is a COVID-19 cure, we're going to sue you. Now, Clive Palmer does not like being sued, right? So he sat back on his laurels and he waited. Later, it was revealed that the Federal Health Department planned to import a bunch of hydroxychloroquine. And Clive Palmer, who was happily resting on his laurels, stood up and he said, got you, right? I got you. You said hydroxychloroquine wasn't a cure for COVID-19, and yet you just stated that you plan to import a bunch. Get wrecked. I caught you. You're a liar. Now, President Harry Nepsolon of the Royal Australian College of General Practitioners said that hydroxychloroquine was being used in drug trials to, help fight COVID-19, but that they actually weren't looking good. It wasn't looking like a steady thing, and that he believed that the public would be lulled into a false sense of security, right? Okay, pretty standard thing, they bring in a drug, they see if it works, it's not really working, so they send it off. Now, Clive Palmer also has a website where he outlines a bunch of interesting things, right? Where he said that a Dr. Patterson claimed that hydroxychloroquine was a cure, right? As evidence. He said, I'm not saying that this is a cure, Dr. Patterson is. Now, Dr. Patterson actually went on the news, right? And he said that, look, those were taken out of context. I was looking at preliminary drug trials done over in Asia, and I was saying, hey, it's kind of looking good over there, but it's not looking good now, and I am not a fan of hydroxychloroquine, which, fair enough. Clive Palmer then ran a bunch of ads in June of 2021, where he said that there was only one COVID death, right? Despite 210 vaccine deaths and 24,000 adverse reactions to the new COVID-19 vaccine. Wow, that is a crazy statistic. Only one dead, but 210 vaccine deaths? Wow. I mean, if only one person was dying, why'd they even bring the vaccines in the first place? Now, the Therapeutic Goods of Australia, who were returning protagonists from threatening to sue Clive Palmer, released a statement on their website where they said, unfortunately, 210 deaths after a vaccination period are normal, as sadly 160,000 people die every year, and 3,000 people die each week in Australia, right? And they said, Clive Palmer, stop running your stupid ads talking about how awesome hydroxychloroquine is and how evil COVID-19 vaccines are, okay? Because it kind of feels like you're downplaying the issue. And if you keep doing that, we're going to sue you again, right? Right. In August of 2021, Qantas announced that it would be mandatory vaccination for all their Qantas employees. Did Clive Palmer like that? No. So he sold all his Qantas shares in one go. Now, Clive Palmer also announced on his website that hydroxychloroquine was made available to doctors on the 2nd of April 2020, and that it cured COVID and it flattened the curve. It got rid of COVID forever. Oh, thank God. Wow, look at him. Look at him. He's so happy. He saved the world with his hydroxychloroquine. The TGA said he couldn't do it, and the President Harry Nepsolon of the Royal Australian College said he couldn't do it, and Dr. Patterson probably shouldn't have backed out of that, right? Okay, so now that Clive Palmer has cured COVID-19 with his hydroxychloroquine against the beliefs of everybody that ever doubted him, we can actually turn the page, literally. On the 28th of February 2022, news.com, that's how you know they're trustworthy, they're literally called news.com, showed that Clive Palmer would like to build a race car museum because he has Qantas shares, he has enough race cars to build a museum, and that 2 years ago, negotiations had begun between Clive Palmer and an unnamed Russian billionaire who was in possession of, drum roll please, we'll do a literal drum roll. The camera's moving, I don't want to do that. A Mercedes-Benz 770k Grosser Offener Tourenwagen. That sounded distinctly German, and it did because it was a rather evil politician's car. Yes, it was good old that guy's car. Clive Palmer wanted to buy that guy's car. On the 2nd of March, as he was, importing it this year, as he was importing the car into the country, a Labor MP, Patrick Gorman, asked Home Affairs Minister Karen Andrews to stop the importation of the car, and I'll post a screen grab of his letter that he wrote to Karen Andrews, basically saying, we can't just let an Australian billionaire buy Hitler's car and let it into the country. Can we? Now, Karen Andrews said that she would look into this, right? She said, we probably shouldn't, you're not allowed to sell Nazi memorabilia and bring it into the country, and we're going to look into that. But the main primary concern with this car is not its rather famous former owner, but rather the fact that old vintage classical cars are filled with asbestos. I don't know why I said it like that. Asbestos. Asbestos is the bestest. They're filled with asbestos, so you can't really bring them into the country because asbestos is bad. Now, on the 4th of March, 2 days after Labor MP Patrick Gorman had been like, yo, Karen, could you come step in to look at this? And Karen was like, you're damn right I can step in to take a look at this, and if anything is fishy, we're going to stop that. Clive Palmer announced that he would sue Karen Andrews for defamation. Why would you sue Karen Andrews for defamation when Patrick is the one that said you're buying Nazi cars? Karen is the one that said, I don't know, but if there's asbestos in it, we're not going to let it into the country. But you're suing her. When Gorman was the one who was like, don't let that car in because it's an evil Nazi car, right? Trigger warning for blatant anti-Semitism. On the 29th of March, Tom Tanuki, a writer for Independent Australia, went to a UAP anti-lockdown rally. Now, we already know that they don't like lockdowns, and we already know that they hold... Well, we didn't know that they hold rallies, but they do hold rallies about how much they hate lockdowns, where they get to talk about how much they hate lockdowns. Now, at 11:50 a.m. at this rally, a man named Mark McMurtry spoke. This is a direct quote. I'm going to read this quote. I noticed there's a lot of people here today with red and blue flags. That piece of crap in the corner is the Union of Jacob. It represents 3 Hebrew tribal flags. If you're worried about standing under the Jews and what they represent, that's what you're standing under with that flag.
And I notice there's a lot of people here today wandering around with the red and the blue flags. That piece of shit that's in the corner of that flag is the Union Jack, the Union of Jacob. It represents 3 Hebrew tribal flags. And if you're worried about standing under the Jews and what they represent, that's what you're standing under when you carry that flag. Okay?
Now, if you don't believe me, Tom Tanuki has a video about the time he went to the rally and about what they said, so you can go watch that. And he also wrote an article that you can go watch that. Well, rather read that. And Plus 61J, a Jewish Australian newspaper, questioned Craig Kelly, where Craig Kelly said that the UAP event began at 5 a.m. and ended at 10 a.m. and another event started soon after, and they had no idea what that event was. Now, first of all, there are a few things wrong with this statement. And the first thing that's wrong with that statement is that a flyer advertised on the United Australia Party Facebook page said that the event started at 11 a.m., which is 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. 6 hours after it apparently did start. Second of all, who is getting up at 5 in the morning to go to a United Australia Party anti-lockdown rally? And why did you think we would believe that, Craig? Craig Kelly stated that the protest was about forced injection mandates, and I accepted an invitation to speak. Now, apparently the event that began after the rally was about, anti-vaccinations. And if there's one thing that Craig and Clive love, it's dunking on vaccinations. So he was like, yeah, I'm going to speak at that and talk about how sick it is, well, rather how sick it would be to not have them. He also stated that, the United Australia Party had their own truck that they used as a stage, and after their event was done at 10 a.m, because remember it had supposedly begun at 5 a.m, they drove off with their truck, and then another truck came in, and blah, 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 who gives a shit about these trucks, right? Tom Tanuki, take it away.
I don't know what they're talking about with different trucks and shit. That's the same fucking truck. It's a truck. You know what, frankly, I don't give a fuck if it was 5 different trucks there. I don't care if UAP's event had fucking a whole convoy of trucks, all with different clashing speakers, all shouting over each other, trying to get a word in edgeways. If it's a UAP event, he has to take responsibility for the lead speakers who were given space there. That's just how responsibility works. If it's your event, the things that happen on the stage, the one stage at your event, are your responsibility. Honestly, if I dig into my heart and I'm honest with myself, the only reason I can think of that this wouldn't be a bigger news story is because we expect them to host a bunch of anti-Semites and losers because of their dabbling in the anti-lockdown movement for a while now. But if it wasn't a story before worthy of bigger coverage when it was just one anti-lockdown parasite being an anti-Semite at an event, surely now that the lead candidate for that party has come out, basically their leader, has come out and said, oh no, I didn't know about that, that's not our job. It should be a bigger story.
Now, I feel like a bigger question than what the hell are these trucks the same is, why is this allowed? They call themselves the United Australia Party, right? And they're applying to old world Australian values of freedom of speech and no vaccinations and blah, blah, blah. But they're platforming a guy who is saying that the Australian flag is like some brainwashing technique developed by evil, I don't want to say it, but Jewish Australians don't deserve this shit. A vote for the United Australia Party is not a vote for Australia. They platform for free speech and yet sue pretty much everybody that criticises them. They claim that they love Australia so much that they literally put it in their name, and yet they platform a guy who says that the very flag of Australia is some brainwashing technique designed to convince everybody that they're actually not ruled over by Jewish people. And sorry guys, but Jewish people live in Australia. Every elderly person that I've ever met, and while all throughout school, has stated that the best thing about Australia is its diversity. You can come over from other countries, but once you get here, well, brother, you're Australian now. Let's go get a saucy roll and go get a sanger and put a shrimp on the barbie. How can those same people say that the best thing about Australia is diversity, while also allowing a party like the United Australia Party to exist with buying the cars of Adolf Hitler and platforming people like Mark McMurtry who are openly anti-Semitic? And then, not only that, but not having the spine to back it up, to tell such blatant lies so easily disprovable by showing their own Facebook posts. Please do not vote for the United Australia Party. A vote for them is not a vote for Australia, no matter how much they try to convince you it is. You may be wondering why, despite Craig Kelly being the leader of the United Australia Party now, I talked a lot about Clive Palmer, and that's because I think that Friendlyjordies has already made an excellent series of videos on Craig Kelly and talking about why he's kind of a dick and why his criticisms still stand up.